The space station called Velanine floated in the darkness between stars. It was huge, bigger than most cities on Earth. Today, it was full of aliens from every corner of the galaxy. They had come for the Great Trade Summit. Una Park walked through the main hall and felt every eye turned toward her. She was used to it by now. The staring, the whispers, the quiet laughter. She was not tall. She was not big. She was a Korean woman of 32 years, with short black hair and hands that showed years of hard work. Her uniform was simple and clean. But that was not why they stared. They stared at the sword on her hip. It was a jingam, a traditional Korean straight sword. Her family had owned it for 12 generations. 400 years of history hung at her side. The handle was wrapped in old leather. The guard was shaped like flower petals. The blade was hidden in a wooden case covered in black lacquer. To the aliens around her, it looked like a toy, a joke, a piece of ancient history that belonged in a museum. A group of insect-like creatures stood near a display of plasma weapons. They were called the Collective. Their leader was Ambassador Ro. He was tall and thin with 4 arms and large black eyes. His mouth had mandibles that clicked when he talked. Ro saw Una and her sword. His mandibles clicked rapidly. This was how his species laughed. "Look," he said to his companions. "The humans have sent a warrior with sharpened metal. How cute. How old-fashioned." His friends joined the clicking laughter. The sound filled the hall. Nearby, a group of crystal beings floated in the air. They were the Villani. They did not have mouths. They spoke through vibrations and music. When they saw Una's sword, they made a sound. It was a low hum that meant something like how sad and how funny at the same time. Una kept walking. Her face showed nothing. Captain Tai Wuhan walked beside her. He was the head of human security for the summit. He was a big man with gray hair at his temples and scars on his hands from old fights. "They are laughing at you," he said quietly. "Let them laugh," Una replied. "Does it not bother you?" Una looked at him with calm eyes. "My grandmother carried this sword. My mother carried this sword. Now I carry it. What do I care about the noise of insects?" Taiwu almost smiled. Almost. They reached the human area of the summit. Director Jisoo Kwan was there. She was the leader of the human group. A diplomat. A negotiator. She was trying to make a trade deal that would help Earth for the next 100 years. Jisoo saw them approach. She was a thin woman with tired eyes and gray streaks in her black hair. The summit had been hard on her. Many aliens did not want humans to succeed. "Lieutenant Park," Jisoo said. "Captain Han, is everything in order?" "Yes, Director," Taiwu said. "The security checks are complete. All weapons have been scanned." Jisoo looked at Una's sword. For a moment, her face showed doubt. "Lieutenant, are you sure about the sword? The other delegations find it strange." "With respect, Director," Una said, "I am sure." Jisoo studied her for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Very well. I trust Captain Han's judgment in security matters." She walked away to meet with more aliens. More beings who thought humans were young and foolish. More creatures who laughed at human ways. Taiwo leaned close to Una. "She does not know why you are really here. No, and she does not need to know." 3 days ago, human intelligence had found a secret message. Someone was planning to kill Director Kwan. The assassins were professionals. The best money could buy. They would strike during the summit when security was complicated by so many different species. Normal weapons might fail. Jammers could disable plasma guns. Shields could stop energy blasts. But a blade? A blade was simple. A blade did not need power cells. A blade did not send signals that could be detected. And Unipark was not just a soldier who carried an old sword. She was something else entirely, something the aliens could not understand. She had trained since she was 5 years old. 27 years of practice. Every day, every morning and every night. Her muscles knew the sword like her lungs knew air. Her eyes could see attacks before they happened. Her hands could move faster than most beings could think. In the old days on Earth, they called people like her masters of the blade. The aliens laughed at her primitive weapon. They thought their plasma guns and molecular blades made them superior. They thought technology had made the old ways useless. They were wrong. As the day continued, Yuna watched everything. She saw how the security drones moved. She counted the exits. She noticed which aliens watched Director Quan too closely. She felt the weight of her sword at her hip like an old friend. The summit would last 3 more days. Somewhere in this station, killers were waiting. Let them come, Yuna thought. Let them learn what 400 years of human steel can do. The lights in the station flickered once. Just for a moment. Most people did not notice. Yuna noticed. She put her hand on her sword. Soon, she thought. Very soon. And somewhere in the shadows of the great station, 3 figures in white bending cloaks checked their claws and waited for darkness to fall. The attack came on the 3rd night of the summit. Yuna was standing near Director Quan when the lights went out. Not slowly. Not with warning. One moment the great hall was bright with 1,000 colors. The next moment, everything was black. Emergency lights came on. Red. Dim. They made everything look like blood. People started screaming. Aliens ran in all directions. Some flew. Some crawled. Some made sounds that hurt human ears. Fear was the same in every language. Yuna did not move. She stood perfectly still and let her eyes adjust to the darkness. Her hand found her sword. Her thumb pushed against the guard, loosening the blade in its case. "Stay close to me," she said to Director Quan. Jisu's face was pale in the red light. "What is happening?" "They are here." Across the hall, Yuna heard plasma fire. Short bursts. Then silence. Then more screaming. Captain Taiwu's voice came through her earpiece. "2 guards down. Weapons are not working. Some kind of jammer. All plasma guns are dead." "Mine too," another guard reported. "Same here." Yuna almost smiled. They had planned for this. The assassins had disabled all energy weapons. They thought this would make them safe. They thought wrong. She drew her sword. The blade made no sound as it left the wooden case. 400 years old and still sharp enough to cut light. The steel caught the red emergency lights and seemed to glow. "Director," Yuna said, "get behind that pillar. Do not move until I tell you. But now." Something in Yuna's voice made Jisu obey without another word. She ran to the pillar and pressed her back against it. Yuna waited. The assassins were Vexari. She had studied their species. 4 arms, fast reflexes, claws that carried poison. They could see heat, so darkness helped them. They wore cloaks that bent light around their bodies, making them almost invisible. Almost. Yuna closed her eyes. She did not need to see. She had trained in darkness since she was a child. Her grandmother had made her practice with cloth over her eyes. "The blade sees for you," the old woman had said. "Trust it." She heard breathing. Not human breathing. Faster, wetter, coming from her left. She heard footsteps. Light, careful. 3 sets. Moving in a triangle pattern toward the pillar where Director Quan was hiding. She heard claws extending. A soft click of bone against bone. Yuna opened her eyes. The first assassin was 5 meters away. His cloak flickered as he moved, showing glimpses of gray skin and black eyes. He was focused on the pillar, on the target. He did not see Yuna step forward. She covered the distance in less than a second. The blade moved in a simple arc. Clean. Perfect. The same cut she had practiced 10,000 times. 15,000. More than she could count. The Vexery's two right arms fell to the floor. He had time to look down at them. He had time to open his mouth to scream. Then the blade came back the other way and opened his throat. The body hit the ground before the scream could escape. The other two assassins turned. Their cloaks fell away as they abandoned stealth for speed. They were fast. Faster than any human could match. Their forearms spread wide, claws gleaming with poison. They attacked together. One from the left, one from the right. Yuna moved between them like water flowing through rocks. The blade sang. She did not think about the cuts. She did not plan them. Her body knew what to do. 27 years of training moved her hands. The spirits of her grandmother and mother guided the steel. Cut. Step. Turn. Cut again. A claw came at her face. She leaned back and let it pass. Her blade answered. The arm that held the claw dropped away. Another attack from behind. She spun. The blade drew a line across a gray chest. Deep. Too deep to survive. The second assassin fell. The third one tried to run. Yuna threw her sword. It was not a fighting technique. It was not something any master would teach. But sometimes, in battle, the blade tells you what it wants to do. And you listen. The sword flew across the hall like a silver bird. It caught the running assassin in the back, just below where his heart would be. The blade went through him completely. The point came out of his chest. He fell forward and did not move again. Silence. Yuna walked to the third body and pulled her sword free. She cleaned the blade on the assassin's cloak. Then she put it back in its case. The emergency lights flickered. Normal lights came back on, bright and white and showing everything. The great hall was a mess. Overturned tables, broken displays, scared aliens pressed against walls. And in the middle of it all, 3 dead Vexery and 1 small human woman holding an old sword. Captain Tai Wu reached her first. His face was pale. 12 seconds, he said. I counted. 12 seconds for 3 of them. They were slow, Yuna said. They were Vexery assassins. The best in the galaxy. Yuna shrugged. Ambassador Rowe stood nearby. His mandibles hung open. He had stopped laughing. All the aliens had stopped laughing. Director Quan came out from behind the pillar. Her hands were shaking. You saved my life. Yes, with a sword. An old sword. Yes. Jisoo looked at the bodies. At the clean cuts. At the blood pooling on the floor. How? Yuna did not answer. Taiwu spoke into his communicator. Get a medical team. And contact the Galactic Coroner. They need to see this. Why? Someone asked. Taiwu looked at the bodies again. At the wounds that should not be possible. At the cuts that went through armor and bone like paper. Because no one is going to believe us otherwise. Dr. Somi Beek had seen many strange things in her career. She had cut open aliens from 100 different worlds. She had studied bodies killed by plasma, by poison, by weapons that tore apart the very atoms of flesh. She thought nothing could surprise her anymore. She was wrong. The autopsy room was cold and white. 3 metal tables held 3 Vexery bodies. Around the room, behind thick glass, representatives from 17 different species watched. Ambassador Rowe was there. The Villani were there. Even a council AI named Bright was there, watching through camera eyes. They all wanted answers. Shomi pulled on her gloves and walked to the first body. Her instruments floated beside her, ready to scan and measure and record. She had done this thousands of times, but this time felt different. "Beginning examination of Subject 1, she said. Her voice was calm and professional. "Vexery male, approximately 40 years old by their counting. Cause of death appears to be severe trauma to the neck and upper limbs." She looked at the wounds, and she stopped. "That cannot be right," she whispered. She ran her scanner over the cut again. Then again. The numbers did not change. "Doctor?" Ambassador Rowe's voice came through the speaker. "What is wrong?" Somi did not answer right away. She moved to the second body. She scanned the wounds there. Same result. She checked the third body. Same impossible numbers. "Dr. Beek," the Council AI said, "please share your findings." Somi took a breath. She had to be professional. She had to present facts. But the facts made no sense. "The wounds," she began. "They are not possible." She pressed a button. A holographic image appeared above the first body. It showed a cross-section of Vexery skin. "Vexery have 7 layers of dermal protection," she explained. "Their skin is a mix of keratin and metallite. It is one of the strongest natural armors in the galaxy. Standard plasma weapons cannot cut through it cleanly. They burn and melt. Molecular blades can cut through it, but they leave rough edges. The cells tear. The tissues rip." She changed the image. Now it showed the actual wound from the body. "This is what I found." The room went silent. The wound was clean. Perfectly clean. Each layer of skin was cut in a straight line. There was no melting, no tearing, no rough edges. It looked like someone had sliced through paper. "At the cellular level," Somi continued, "individual cells are cut in half. Not torn, not damaged. Cut. The edge that made this wound is sharper than anything we can manufacture." "How sharp?" a Vellani representative asked through translation. Somi put up another image. "Our finest cutting tools use monofilament edges. They are about 0.3 nanometers thick. That is 3 times the width of a single atom." She paused. "The edge that made these wounds appears to be thinner than an atom. My instruments cannot measure it. It is too small." Noise erupted in the observation room. Clicks and hums and beeps of surprise. Ambassador Rowe's mandibles were shaking. "That is impossible," he said. "No blade can be sharper than atomic bonds." "I agree," Somi said. "And yet, here is the proof." "What kind of weapon could do this?" someone asked. "I do not know, but I can tell you what it was not. It was not plasma. It was not a molecular blade. It was not a laser or a particle beam. The wound shows no energy transfer of any kind. Whatever made this cut was purely mechanical. A physical edge cutting through flesh." "You are saying," the Council AI spoke slowly, "that a physical blade made of metal cut through Vexery armor at a subatomic level?" "I am saying that is what the evidence shows." Somi walked to a table where evidence bags were laid out. She picked one up. Inside was Yuna's sword. "This is the weapon," she said. "I have scanned it. The blade is made of steel, iron and carbon. Common elements. There is nothing special about the materials. It was made on Earth over 400 years ago using traditional methods." She held it up to the light. "And yet, when I scan the edge, I get readings that make no sense. The edge seems to exist in a state of quantum uncertainty. It is there and not there at the same time. It is both a physical object and something else. Something we do not have words for." The observation room was completely silent now. Ambassador Rowe spoke first. "You are telling us that humans have had this technology for 400 years, and they never told anyone?" "I do not think they knew," Selmy said. I do not think they understood what they had made. They just knew that some blades were better than others. They knew that certain techniques, passed from teacher to student, created weapons that worked in ways they could not explain. She set down the sword. What I cannot tell you is how. How did primitive humans, working with fire and hammers, create something that our most advanced science cannot replicate? How did they make a quantum weapon without knowing what quantum physics was? No one had an answer. Somi looked at the 3 bodies on her tables. 3 of the deadliest assassins in the galaxy, killed in 12 seconds by a woman with an old sword. I need to speak with the human who carries this blade, she said. I need to understand. Because right now, Dr. Somi Beek understood nothing. And that scared her more than anything she had found in 3,000 autopsies. The galaxy had weapons that could destroy planets. They had technology that could bend space and time. They had science beyond human imagination. And somehow, an old piece of human steel was sharper than all of it. The Galactic Council chamber was built to hold thousands. Today, it held only a few dozen. But they were the most powerful few dozen in the known universe. Species leaders, military commanders, scientists who had unlocked the secrets of stars. And in the center of the room, kneeling on a simple mat, was Una Park. Her sword lay before her on a piece of silk. Under the bright lights of the chamber, it looked plain, simple, old, just a piece of metal in a wooden case. But everyone in the room knew better now. Lieutenant Park, the council AI named Bright, spoke first. We have studied your weapon. We have examined the bodies of the assassins. We have results that we cannot explain. We are here for answers. Una bowed her head slightly. I will tell you what I can. Let us start with the blade itself. Bright's holographic form flickered as it processed data. Our scans show that the metal is ordinary steel, iron and carbon. Nothing exotic, nothing special. Yet the edge of the blade exists in a quantum state that we cannot replicate with our most advanced technology. How is this possible? Captain Taiwu stepped forward. May I speak? The council allowed it. I have studied this for many years, Taiwu said. When I first saw what blades like this could do, I thought there must be some hidden technology, some alien secret that our ancestors had found. But the truth is much stranger. He walked to a display screen and brought up images. Old paintings, ancient drawings, pictures of men and women working with fire and metal. Pictures of men and women working with fire and metal. Women working with fire and metal. Humans have been making blades for thousands of years. At first, they were simple, rough. But over time, our smiths learned techniques. They learned to fold the steel, to heat it and cool it in special ways, to hammer it with specific patterns. He showed a video of an old man working at a forge. The man's movements were slow and careful. Each strike of the hammer was precise. They did not know why these techniques worked. They just knew that blades made this way were better, sharper, stronger. They passed the knowledge from master to student, generation after generation, each one adding small improvements, small refinements. Ambassador Rowe interrupted. You were saying they created quantum technology by accident? Not by accident. By practice. By dedication. By 10,000 hours of work repeated over 100 generations. Taiwu changed the display again. Now it showed molecular structures, complex diagrams of steel at the atomic level. We now know what happens when steel is folded correctly. The process creates tiny flaws in the crystal structure of the metal. Most of these flaws make the steel weaker, but some of them, when aligned perfectly, create something else. They create points where the blade exists in multiple quantum states at once. The edge becomes uncertain, Bright said slowly. It is both there and not there. Yes, and when it cuts, it does not push atoms apart. It simply exists between them. There is no resistance, no friction. Nothing can stop it because, in a way, it is not fully there to be stopped. Silence filled the chamber. A Volani representative made a low sound. How can this be controlled? How can random flaws create such a precise effect? Yuna spoke for the first time. It is not random. Everyone turned to her. She picked up her sword and held it in both hands. Even in the plain light, something about it seemed different now, alive. My great-grandfather made this blade, she said. He learned from his teacher. His teacher learned from another teacher. The line goes back 20 generations. Each one spent their whole life learning. Each one gave their whole self to the steel. She drew the blade slowly. The metal caught the light and seemed to shimmer, as if it could not decide what color it was. We do not call it quantum physics. We call it ki, spirit, life force. When a smith makes a blade, they pour their ki into it. Their focus, their will, their desire for the blade to be perfect. That is superstition, someone said. Is it? Yuna met the speaker's eyes. Can your machines make a blade like this? Can your factories? You have technology that can destroy planets. Can you make a sword that cuts at the quantum level? No one answered. You cannot, because you do not understand what you are making. You press buttons and machines do the work. But the old smiths knew their steel like they knew their own children. Every fold, every heat, every strike of the hammer. They felt when the metal was ready. They knew when the edge was right. She lifted the blade to eye level. The edge was invisible, too thin to see. Science can explain what this blade is, but science cannot make another one, because making is not the same as understanding. These swords are not manufactured. They are born. Bright processed this for a long moment. You are suggesting that consciousness affects the quantum state of the metal. That focused intent during the forging process creates stable quantum effects. I am not a scientist. I only know what my grandmother taught me. She said the blade is a mirror. It shows what is inside you. If you are empty, the blade is empty. If you are focused, the blade focuses. If your spirit is sharp, the blade is sharp. She returned the sword to its case. For 400 years, this sword has protected my family. My grandmother used it. My mother used it. Now I use it. Someday, I will teach my daughter. And the blade will continue. Ambassador Rowe stood slowly. His mandibles were still. We came here to laugh at human primitives, he said. We thought our technology made us superior. But you have something we cannot buy, cannot steal, cannot copy. Yuna nodded. Some things can only be earned. Through time, through practice, through generations of dedication. She stood and bowed to the council. That is the secret of steel, not metal, not science, patience, and love. The council chamber remained silent long after she left. 3 months passed after the summit. The trade agreement was signed. It gave humanity access to resources and technology that would help Earth for generations. Director Kwan became famous. She was called the woman who brought peace through negotiation. But everyone knew the truth. Peace had not come through words alone. It had come through 12 seconds of violence and an old sword. The assassin's employers were never publicly named. But in the following weeks, 3 powerful cartel leaders died in strange accidents. One fell from a building. One choked on his food. One simply vanished, leaving only a small pool of blood and a cut so clean it went through the floor. No one asked questions. More importantly, no one laughed at humans anymore. Requests began arriving on Earth. Thousands of them. The Vellani offered rare crystals worth more than entire planets. They wanted to buy just one traditional sword. The collective proposed military exchanges and training programs. They wanted to learn the way of the blade. Ambassador Rowe himself sent a personal message to the human government. He asked, very politely, if he might be allowed to visit a traditional forge, to watch the process, to understand. All requests were declined. Some things cannot be sold. Some knowledge cannot be shared with outsiders. This is what the old masters had always taught. The skills belong to those who earn them. Year by year, cut by cut, generation by generation. In a small city called Jeonju, in the country once known as Korea, an old man named Junho Choi woke before dawn. He had done this every day for 60 years. His bones ached. His fingers were stiff. But he walked to his forge anyway. The fire was cold. He built it up slowly. Good steel needed the right heat. Not too hot, not too cold. He knew the right color by heart. Orange fading to yellow. That was when the metal was ready. His apprentice arrived as the sun rose. A young woman named Mina. She was 20 years old and had trained for 5 years. She still had much to learn, but she was dedicated. That was what mattered. "Good morning, master," she said. Junho nodded. He did not waste words. They worked in silence, heating the steel, folding it, hammering out the impurities. This blade would take 3 months to finish. Maybe longer. There was no rushing the process. Around midday, Junho's phone buzzed. A message from his great-granddaughter, Yuna. She was still on the space station, helping with human security. The message was simple. Just 2 words. "Thank you." Junho smiled. He did not smile often. His apprentice noticed and looked curious, but she did not ask. Good. Patience was important. He returned to his work. Across the galaxy, in meeting rooms and military bases and scientific labs, aliens were studying humans with new eyes. They ran simulations. They built machines. They tried to understand how primitive metallurgy could create quantum weapons. They failed. Their computers could calculate the exact temperature needed. Their robots could hammer with perfect precision. Their factories could fold steel 1,000,000 times in a single day. But the blades they produced were ordinary. Sharp, yes, but not alive, not uncertain, not impossible, because they did not understand the secret. The secret was not in the technique. Any fool could learn to fold steel. The secret was in the 10,000 hours, the 20,000, the 100,000, the lifetime of focus poured into a single purpose. When Junho's grandmother had taught his mother, she did not just teach her how to move the hammer. She taught her how to listen to the steel, how to feel when it was happy, how to know when it wanted to bend and when it wanted to break. This could not be programmed. This could not be rushed. This could not be stolen or copied or bought. This was human. In his private quarters on Vellani, Ambassador Rowe sat alone. On his desk was a small case. Inside the case was a fragment of metal, a tiny piece of steel that had been stuck in a wall after the battle, part of the blade that had been thrown through the third assassin. He examined it under magnification. The edge was still impossibly sharp. After 3 months, it had not dulled at all. His scientists had studied it. They had written reports full of words like quantum uncertainty and probability fields and coherent superposition. They had theories. They had graphs. They had no answers. Rowe picked up the fragment carefully. It was lighter than it looked. It seemed to hum in his hand, though that might have been his imagination. Humans were young. They had only been in space for a few hundred years. They did not have the fastest ships or the biggest guns. By galactic standards, They were children. But children grow. Ro remembered the fear he had felt when the lights went out at the summit. He remembered the sound of the blade cutting through the darkness. He remembered watching Unipark stand alone among three bodies and not even breathe hard. His mandibles clicked softly. But this time, he was not laughing. He was thinking. In Jeongju, as the sun set over the mountains, Master Junho Choi finished his day's work. The blade was only a small bar of folded steel now. It did not look like much. But in 3 months, after thousands more folds and 100 more days of careful shaping, it would become something beautiful, something impossible, something human. He covered the forge and walked to his small house. Behind him, the fire slowly died. But it would burn again tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that. For as long as there were masters willing to teach and students willing to learn, the blades would continue. This was humanity's true weapon. Not strength, not technology, not numbers, patience, dedication, time. The aliens had traveled between stars for 1,000,000 years. They had conquered physics and built empires across galaxies. But they had forgotten how to wait. And that, in the end, would make all the difference.